Hello there, watching L24 Midnight News Edition, and to the headlines. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, recalls Algeria's ambassador to France for consultation after a secret evacuation of an Algerian national. The death toll from the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria passes 12,000 as rescue teams face shortages of trucks, fuel and time. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov offers support for Mauritania in the fight against terrorism in the Sahel region, saying he respected the country's position in Ukraine-Russia conflict. Amid the rising tension between the two countries over the spy balloon shot down by US, Beijing declined a phone call between US Defense Secretary and his Chinese counterpart. Hello and welcome again. Starting from Algeria, on Wednesday, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, ordered the immediate summoning of Algeria's ambassador to France, Saïd Moussi, for consultation, according to a statement by the Algerian presidency, which added that the summons decision comes in the wake of the official memorandum through which Algeria expressed its strong condemnation for the secret and illegal evacuation of an Algerian national whose presence is considered on the national soil is necessary by decision of Algerian judiciary. And to have a clear idea over this matter, I'm joined live by Mr. Hamoud Salhi, who is an international relations expert and an associate dean at California University from USA. Mr. Hamoud, first of all, can't we consider the French violation of Algeria's sovereignty an unfaithful act, especially since it coincides with the provocative statement made by the French president in the French newspaper Le Point last year?
You are correct 100%. Just when you think that the French got past their colonial attitude, this comes in. And this comes in because it speaks volume to the kind of relationship that the Algerians and the French were building. Visits of the president, other high officials to Algeria, all those are forgotten, which are not sort of been thrown away, could be thrown away now. Second, one also speaks about commitment to bilateral treaties that France signs with other countries. France has bilateral an extradition treaty with Algeria, which it signed on many occasions, renewed to make it more modern, the latest of which that Macron himself signed. And then on a different level, even in relation to the EU, France for years refused to send criminals or people who are wanted in Algeria under pretext that they will be under threat. The EU court ordered France in 2015 to do just that, explaining that Algeria is not what France were made in it, and it's within its that right to send them. So it's puzzling, and in a way, it's not surprising.
Quite understood. Now, there is no doubt, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, that the recent act by French diplomats will cause a great harm to Algerian-French relations. So, based on your perception, what course is the situation now taking?
I think so far you could see Algerians are taking some cautions, meaning that they send a strong signal, a firm signal that this is a violation of national sovereignty. But at the same time, the president asking and present or bringing the ambassador for consultation is a clear indication or another indication that the Algerians want to resolve this quickly. But more importantly, that France has to do something, including perhaps an apology. This is because of the impact that it has on the relationship. So the ball is in the hand of France. And as we have seen from before, Algeria is committed to its principle, and the French authorities have to correct this what happened here, bring in following the due process, international law, and more than anything else, taking into account that Algeria and France are equal and should not be treated with the way France have been treating them. So it's a long shot.
Quite interesting, Mr. Hamoud Salhi. You joined me live from USA. Thank you ever so much for your clarification.
Thank you.
Now, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received today, Wednesday, at the presidential palace in Algiers, the ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Mohammed Tariq, who paid him a farewell visit on the occasion of the end of his duties in Algeria, according to a statement by the Algerian presidency. Opening the Turkey's disaster management authority said on Wednesday that the death toll had passed 8,500. The White Helmets rescue team, which is coordinating emergency efforts in rebel-held areas, said on Twitter that the toll had risen to more than 1,400 deaths and more than 2,600 injured. The number of victims is climbing quickly 2 days after earthquakes leveled cities and towns in both countries, which fears that the number will double. In the same line of thought, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan visited many areas badly affected by the catastrophic earthquake. First, he toured a tent city in hard-hit Kahramanmars, where people forced from their homes are living. Then he went to Hatay, where he gave a speech underlying the government's efforts to face the aftermath of the earthquake, saying that it is impossible to be prepared to face a disaster like that.
Şüphesiz ki işimiz kolay değildi.
Undoubtedly, our operational work has not been easy. The magnitude and the huge extent of the destruction caused by the earthquake, which involved a 500-kilometer area where 13.5 million people live, have been amplified by bad weather conditions. Nevertheless, we mobilized all the national resources and we have addressed them toward the areas. Certainly, there have been shortfalls, as the conditions have been clear. It is impossible to be prepared to face a disaster like this.
The death toll from the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria surpassed 12,000 as rescue teams arrived in the two countries to assist victims of one of the region's worst natural disasters. Maryam Zian.
Rescuers are still racing against time, searching for signs of life in the rubble of thousands of buildings in southern Turkey and northern Syria, the deadliest quake worldwide in more than a decade. Medical personnel, soldiers and handlers with trained search dogs sent from around the world arrived in hope of searching for survivors in sub-freezing temperatures. But the scale of destruction from the earthquake and its powerful aftershocks was so immense that many people were still awaiting help. The death toll keeps rising, with more than 12,000 deaths in both Turkey and Syria and more than 50,000 people injured.
The current number of people who died in Turkey is 9,057. The number of people who died in Hatay province is 3,356. The number of the wounded in the whole country is 52,979, and the destructed buildings are 6,444.
And while most help is reaching Turkey, a leading UN official called for the facilitation of aid access to rebel-held areas in Syria's northwest, where more than 4 million people were already relying on humanitarian assistance.
We need to make sure that we can move quickly and move to provide the assistance. Whoever is listening, please help us to get moving on this, and we'll think later about the wider question of the sanctions you have mentioned.
One of the deadliest natural disasters in the century added a crisis on top of the already existing crisis in the region. And the World Health Organization said it's fearing a health crisis that will cause even more damage than the earthquake itself, calling for the restoration of essential services in Turkey and Syria.
The Algerian civil defense team continues to demonstrate their unwavering commitment to saving lives and alleviating suffering in times of crisis.
Algerian civil protection units deployed in Turkey and Syria following the deadly earthquake carried out their humanitarian operations with very deliberate steps and according to a precise plan of action. An Algerian practical command center was installed to target the affected areas. The operations of the Algerian rescue teams in the Turkish region of Adıyaman started with the rescue of 5 people who were trapped under the rubble for more than 30 hours, while recovering 14 other bodies of victims. Rescue teams made the same efforts in Syria, exactly in Bustan Qasr al-Shariqa. The Algerian special team succeeded in rescuing 1 person alive under the wreck, as well as recovering 4 bodies of other victims, while Algerian efforts continue to save the stranded alive and recover the bodies of the dead. Relief operations continue in the city of El Salihin in Aleppo, as 2 bodies of 2 missing were recovered, amid a commitment from the Algerian authorities to harness additional teams as needed. Algerian relief teams began their tasks in the field as soon as they arrived in the 2 affected areas. Despite the dangerous conditions, Algeria's civil protection units remain relentless in their efforts to provide first aid and assistance.
The Director General of Communication, Information and Documentation at the Algerian Foreign Ministry stated that Algeria has sent 10 planes to Syria and Turkey, indicating that efforts undertaken by Algeria stem from values that characterize the Algerian people during hardship.
Since the beginning of the catastrophe, both in Turkey and Syria, Algeria has expressed its compassion and solidarity with the victims and with the peoples of Turkey and Syria. And we have sent many planes, both either to Turkey or Syria, to express our solidarity to the peoples of these 2 countries.
President of the Nation Council, Saleh Gugil, signed at the headquarters of the Turkish Embassy in Algeria and on behalf of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the register of condolences following the natural disaster. On her behalf, the Turkish ambassador to Algeria thanked Algeria for its support as well as for the aid provided to the Republic of Turkey during these hard times.
These are difficult times with a number of victims, missing people and infrastructure losses. Algeria also experienced such earthquakes. We have experienced such crises.
We have been subjected to the most violent earthquake that we have not witnessed before. 10 states were targeted by this violent earthquake, for which we collect millions of dead, wounded and missing. Algeria is one of the first countries in solidarity with Turkey, and it has sent 86 civil protection aides, doctors, nurses and experts, as well as about 95 tons of provisions. Algeria is a country that witnessed the earthquake and knows very well its consequences. Today, I thank the Algerian people for their support and solidarity in such difficult times. We have received a lot of solidarity and help from volunteers. I thank all government members and the President Abdelmajid Tebboune, as well as the National Assembly Speaker who offered condolences today. I thank you all for your presence in these hardships.
To a different matter now, the American Stratfor Institute, which specializes in providing geopolitical predictions, published a report on Algeria, in which it said that Algeria had adopted a new strategy for international communication by intensifying its diplomatic efforts, which made it an active element in global and regional affairs. Hussein Berkan.
The American Stratford Institute, a leading provider of geopolitical predictions, has released an analysis on the recent development in Algeria. After President Abdelmajid Tebboune came to power 3 years ago, Algeria has shifted its focus to foreign policy and international communication. Despite its continued reliance on hydrocarbons energy resources, Algeria has been able to modernize its economy and establish political stability and economic strength. The Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has made several moves in recent years to participate more actively in North African and global affairs. In 2022, Algeria hosted the Arab Summit, strengthening its relationship with Arab regimes. The country also held bilateral meetings with Tunisia and hosted talks with Palestinian factions and Libya regarding the export of electricity. After years of isolation and mistrust in the West, Algeria has re-emerged on the international stage, expressing its desire to join the BRICS group. The demand for Algerian gas as an alternative to Russian gas in Europe has given a strong boost to the Algerian economy in 2022. The Algerian government has used its energy revenue to provide benefits and subsidies to its people, reducing the occurrence of protests related to the economic situation. This is all a result of Algeria's focus on foreign policy and its ability to establish political stability and economic strength.
Wednesday marked the 65th anniversary of Saqiet Sidi Youssef massacre, which was committed by the French colonizer on the Algerian-Tunisian border. This massacre is considered as prominent evidence of the spirit of solidarity that binds the two peoples and is one of the stations of the joint struggle of two brotherly countries. Nabil Khazini.
For both the Algerian and the Tunisian peoples alike, this place represents a symbol of a common struggle. Here in Saqiet Sidi Youssef, the French colonizer committed a massacre, a heinous attack targeting Algerian and Tunisian civilians. 25 planes bombarded the area. 79 people were killed. Among them were 14 children and 20 women. 130 others were wounded. The village was reduced to nothing.
What France committed against the defenseless innocent is a heinous and terrible crime against humanity that will not be subject to statute of limitations, as it was a premeditated attack on innocent people who gathered in a weekly market, during a holiday, and on the sovereignty of sisterly Tunisia, which resulted in the complete destruction of the village.
65 years on, February the 8th is still a remarkable day in the relations between Algeria and Tunisia. Every year, both countries remember this shared memory of a glorious past with pride in the hearts that the Algerians and the Tunisians were and still are brotherly peoples.
Talking about Saqiet Sidi Youssef means talking about common struggle between the Algerian people and the Tunisian people. It cannot be erased because history cannot be erased.
Saqiet Sidi Youssef is another unforgettable chapter in history books, a chapter and a lesson of unity between the two peoples.
Still in the African continent, Nelson Mandela's grandson reaffirmed the South African position of principle in favor of the Sahrawi people's struggle for their self-determination. President of the South Africa Movement of Solidarity with the Sahrawi people specified in a statement to the press accompanied by the Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ali, that the struggle of the Sahrawi people has become a basis for South Africa government policies.
As South Africa, we have deep historical ties with Polisario Front and the people of Western Sahara. During our darkest days in the struggle for liberation, Polisario stood side by side with us, fought in the same trenches with us, and we will begin to winning overwhelming majority in exposing the rot that is infested within the Moroccan oppressive regime. And we will once again see the oppressed come victorious in realizing their freedom in their lifetime. We thank you for having been able to host us in these refugee camps and wish you well in the challenges that we continuously face from the transgressor.
Still in Africa, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has arrived to Mauritania on Tuesday evening. The visit aims at discussing cooperation between the two countries and regional and international issues. Following his meeting with the Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould El Ghazouani, the Russian top diplomat said that both Russia and Mauritania were alarmed by tensions in the Sahara-Sahel region, where efforts need to be joined to combat terrorism. Within the same trip, Sergei Lavrov met also with his Mauritanian counterpart, Mohamed Salem Ould El Marzouk. Both foreign ministers discussed ways of cooperation between the two countries and ways of enhancing them to serve the common interests of the two peoples. The United Nations has said that Libya's 5+5 Joint Military Committee has agreed on coordination mechanism for withdrawal of foreign forces in contact with neighboring Sudan and Niger. The decision was announced today at the conclusion of the two-day meeting in Cairo chaired by the Special Representative of Secretary General of the United Nations for Libya, Mr. Abdullah Batili. The head of the Presidential Council's representative, Abdullah Al-Lafi, had a meeting with Lassil Ordman, the chargé d'affaires of the U.S. Embassy to Libya. The purpose of the meeting was to explore ways to progress the political process in the country. The two officials also talked about the 5+5 military committee and new steps towards national reconciliation. The goal is to build upon the successes achieved in previous forums and establish a constitutional foundation and comprehensive agreement that will pave the way for elections. Sudanese Foreign Minister Ali As-Siddiqui had a meeting with ambassadors from the permanent and non-permanent members of the Security Council. The main topic of the discussion was Sudan's request for support in ending the sanctions that have been imposed on the country. During the meeting, As-Siddiqui emphasized the significant changes and improvements that have taken place in Sudan and the need for the international community to support the country's efforts towards a peaceful transition to democracy. Now to a different topic. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that Beijing will firmly defend its interests, calling on the United States to work to restore relations between them. In response to U.S. President Joe Biden's speech to Congress, it seeks to avoid competition with the United States and is not afraid of it, but it proposes to view the entire Sino-American relationship through this single perception of competition.
The U.S. should establish an objective and rational perception of China, pursue a positive and pragmatic policy toward China, and work with China to promote the return of bilateral relations to a track of sound and stable development.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a raid trip to London, where he met with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak outside Downing Street. The meeting marked Zelensky's first stop in London and only his second trip abroad since the conflict in Ukraine began in February of the previous year. During the meeting, the British Prime Minister announced an increase in military support for Ukraine, including training for Ukrainian pilots and advanced NATO fighter jets.
We know Russia will lose. And we really know the victory will change the world. And this will be a change that the world has long needed. The United Kingdom is marching with us towards the most important victory of our lifetime. It will be a victory over the very idea of the war.
Ending up our news bulletin with the athletes' record.
You know, to break the record, I was able to get to a really good spot on the floor where I'm very comfortable with and get to one of my patented fadeaway shots, you know, and I know a lot of people wanted me to go to the sky hook to break the record, or one of my signature dunks. But my fadeaway was a signature play as well, and I was able to get it, and it touched nothing but the bottom of the net. That was pretty cool.
With this new record in sport, we come to an end to our news bulletin. Thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And for now, like I say, good night.